So what we're going to talk about now is we're going to talk about the consultation process. Okay, so the act of talking to our people that obviously engage with our business, all of our different various stakeholders, our managers, our staff, to some degree even our customers, our suppliers, whoever it happens to be. Now there's a regulation, there's regulations in place that say that we actually have to consult with people. So consultation, not only is it a good practice, but actually it's a mandatory practice in quite a lot of areas, particularly things like safety. Now the reason we start to consult with people is because we want to ensure that all of our stakeholders are aware of the plan. Okay, we've obviously come through a process of making a bunch of plans, making a bunch of things that we want to do and want to achieve, and we need to make sure that everyone understands what's actually about to happen, because if people get lost along the way, they're not going to deliver what you need, and you're always going to find yourself having to stop, re-explain, cover things off with people who don't know what's going on, and that's actually going to work really against you. On the other hand, if you've made sure that everyone's aware, you can also make sure that you're seeking information before you start the plan. Information that might actually have an effect on the plan you're about to introduce. So it's a good idea to make sure that you have all that information from those people. And also by making sure that we consult with people, it helps us establish realistic timeframes and budgets. It makes sure that the assumptions that we made, that we think are going to happen, can actually happen. That we're not actually about to do something and then we find out later that actually that wasn't possible because we'd forgotten something along the way. If we make sure that everyone's aware of what's about to happen, they can let us know if we've got any problems coming up that we hadn't thought about. So the people we need to start to consult there is we need to start to consult our managers and supervisors. Okay, these are the people who are going to be out there and they're going to be implementing a lot of these things. Okay, if they have to run it, they need to know exactly what's going on. What am I about to do? What's going to happen? Who will be involved? How will it happen? When will it happen? Where will it happen? All that information stuff they really need to know. The other people we might look at is subject matter experts. Okay? And the reason we might engage as subject matter experts is people that are well across what it is that we're about to be doing. We might have a general idea, but it's always good to ask someone who really knows. And that could be a lawyer, it could be your lender or your financier. It might actually be to bring in tradespeople or whoever we think is going to add a little bit of value to that process, because obviously we want to make sure, once again, we're not making sweeping assumptions that don't turn out to be correct. Okay, and it might be a case of bringing them in to consult with just to make sure that our planning is right, or we might actually get them to actually run quite a lot of that planning. Okay, so that's really depending on how comfortable you are and how across a subject or an area of your business you are. We're not all experts at all things, and it's a really good idea to make sure we go off and get professional opinions sometimes. Okay, we might also then look at consulting the rest of our stakeholders. And as we've already started talking about, some of those stakeholders might be investors, sure, but it might also be our shareholders, okay? People that have a financial interest in our business. We might need to talk to our suppliers to make sure that they can actually supply the right amount of whatever it is that we're looking to use. Okay, if we're planning on getting a certain amount of items, we need to make sure they can provide those items in the time frame that we're looking for. So that's why that consultation is important. We need to make sure our distributors are ready so that when we start pushing product out or pushing our services out, they're ready to be able to distribute that and pass that on to our consumers. And we might also think about our representatives, so the people that are selling on our behalf or acting as our agents. We need to make sure they're aware because no one wants to get caught by surprise. And that way they can let us know if there's any problems that they can foresee with the process coming out there. All right, so there are various people we might look at. And as I say, with the stakeholders, we can obviously and would always include our staff, our people and our teams. Okay, so the people that are going to be affected by what we're doing, or those that could affect it, we need to make sure that we've got some way of finding out what's going on. So how do I consult with these people? Well, there's the good old way of, let's put out email exchanges. Okay, so we can email them out, get out internet communications, surveys, SurveyMonkey, all that sort of stuff out there. Okay, so we're not just saying send them an email. We're looking at using, other sort of internet platforms as well. So emails, surveys, not a bad one. You could do things like record videos just like this and make sure that that information's out there that they can go through and they can check it to find out what they need to know and then come back to you with any questions. Forums, etc. can be good for that. We can send out newsletters. Okay, so newsletters are pretty good at making sure that people understand what's happening. The drawback with the newsletter, obviously, is it's very one-way communication. You push the information out there, you're not necessarily getting stuff back, which is where holding something like a focus group can really come in handy, because if we've got a focus group, we can start to actually divine opinions straight away. We can actually listen to what people have got to say and start to get that information. Obviously though, it's not really two-way communication. To some degree, we're just hearing opinions. We can't really inform. We might also look at brainstorming, okay? Getting our people together, letting them know what we want to do and see what views or information they have there. Brainstorming can be really good. It's a great tool. A lot of people roll their eyes when they hear the term brainstorming, but used well, a brainstorming session is really effective. Unfortunately, it often isn't used terribly well, so that's what creates some of the problems out there. We might also just have feedback sessions, okay? And a feedback session is pretty good for getting, analysing what happened, what did people do, what was working, what didn't work, and trying to get that information out there. Once again, it can be very time and labour intensive, but the information you can get out of there from real, it happened and this is what happens is great, okay? We can hold meetings, okay? Meetings are always a great one. Get all the stakeholders in an area and make sure you run a meeting. But with all meetings, make sure you've got a good agenda and people understand what is about to happen, okay? So keep to the script, make sure you know what's going on, and work from there. Interviews are another way to do it. Okay, like a focus group can be another great tool for going out and getting a real lot of depth, speaking to one person and really finding out what's happening, and talk to them about what your anticipated change is. Again, making sure you have a script and making sure you've got planning there is going to be really essential to keep it on topic and to be able to measure it at the end. Because you need to be able to compare them against others to look for any trends or information that comes out. So keep it consistent. Right, part of the consultation process though is really starting to understand yourself and others, okay? Because in all of this, what we're finding is we're dealing with people. And that means that, there's always going to be that human element that we need to take the time to understand, okay? What's going to affect this is the theories in our companies, okay? We can sometimes talk a lot of things, but the way we act is a little bit different. So we start talking about espoused theories versus theories in use. These are the principles we say we have as a company, but sometimes we don't necessarily live up to those ideals. That's going to affect some of this information coming back. We can say that all the information is private, but if we then, publicly go and punish people for opinions or anything like that, that's obviously going to come up, and that does happen for some organisations. They say, tell us what your problems are, but then persecute you if you do. So you've got to really make sure that that's not what's happening here and that people can develop trust with you. Okay, the other thing that's going to come out to this is going to be very different depending on whether someone's an extrovert or an introvert. An introvert sitting in a focus group might not feel comfortable sharing information. The extrovert will dominate the conversation and it will be very quick to start to think that, well, that's the broader opinion, whereas it actually might only be one or two people. So I need to think about introverts or people that want to, just have that very different way of approaching things. It might actually be better for an interview. They might be very good in that area. They might want to give information, a little more anonymously. So emails or surveys can be quite good, as long as you're protecting that information. Once again, thinking about that, don't let the extroverts dominate a brainstorm session. Make sure that you're running a brainstorm session effectively for all different personality types. You also have, your feelers, intuitors, sensors, or thinkers. Okay, that people are going to give different answers depending on how way they perceive information. Different personality types are going to come into play, and you just need to think about how they are. Is it the thinker who likes to spend more time reflecting, that they're not necessarily saying a lot at the time? Doesn't mean they're not thinking about it. In fact, they are thinking about it. What they're not doing is blurting out the information, which you might find some of your feelers or intuitors are naturally more inclined to start. Just their initial impact, instinct will come out, and you'll once again it can start to skew the information that you're getting out there. So you just need to think about who these people are. You might find that you get different types. Once again, you might get your conscientious thinker who once again likes to appreciate and look at information long term, absorb it, and then come to a considered view. You might find you get those very dominating people that like to just take the centre ground and push their view out very quickly. They come to a decision very quickly, and that's where it's going to be. They're very quick to put it out there. But you also might have the interacting realiser, so the person that's very good at working with others to achieve a bigger impact. So once again, you have to be really looking at, what sort of person are you, and how's that going to affect another person? If you're a very extroverted person, is that going to put off some of the people that are a little bit more introverted? So once again, if you're engaging in these things, think about your personality type and the impact that it might have with some of those other staff. It's not right or wrong, and it's certainly not about that. It's about trying to get the best thing out of your people. Okay, so think about whether you have analysts, whether you have empathists, are they more thinking people, are they more feeling people, are they more out there? How do they operate, okay? And each one of those is going to have a different way to really give you that information. The key point about getting the best information out of these people, though, is about trust, okay? So trust pays dividends. If people can believe what you say, if people are happy to provide information, not thinking they're going to get punished for it, they're going to provide much more honest and open information. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is, regardless of what's happening here, you need to develop that all-encompassing area of trust. If you break it and you start to create problems for them, if you say you're going to do something and then do something else, if you say you're going to listen to their opinions and then disregard their opinion and they don't understand why, then that's going to break the trust. Okay, so trust, as I say, trust is an interesting part. There's a certain amount of trust that you'll be given just by virtue of the fact that people work with you and that people are generally fairly trusting. They will come along and they will give you that initial trust, and it's a basic amount. And it's very easy at that stage to break or wreck. It doesn't take a lot of broken promises to find very quickly that you've lost that. So trust is something for you to continue to earn and develop. And the way we're going to earn and develop is by delivering on what we say we're going to deliver. Okay, we're going to make sure that we take responsibility for things. First of all, do what you say you're going to do. If you tell the people you're going to do a certain thing, make sure you do. If you tell them that you're going to listen to their information, make sure you listen to it. And what will happen is, if you take responsibility for the times that you get things wrong and be open and honest about it, even though you've done something other than you said you would, but at least you gave an explanation as to why and how. And what will happen is that starts to show respect to other people. Okay, so if you can start to build that, if you start to engender that relationship, what will happen is that people will start to share more and more information with you, and that can only improve your company. If you decide that you're going to tell people that we're going to respect and listen to your information, make sure that that's precisely what you do. That doesn't say you have to implement everything they say. You might get to a point where you've taken on board some feedback, but you've decided not to go in that particular direction. Just let them know that's what you've done. Let them know that yes, you heard it, you've considered what they had to say, but in this case, you've gone a separate way. If you're going to do something other than what they expect, make sure they're well aware of it. And as long as you're open and honest with people about the decisions you make and you maintain transparency, then they will continue to participate with you, and and it shows that respect is being put there. What will also happen is that it'll allow you to establish and sustain new networks. Okay? People will want to bring you in because you're known as a reliable and honest, open person. So that'll give you exposure to quite a lot of other ideas in an organisation and other people that you can work with. And that's not just within your organisation, but it might be other professional bodies and a whole range of other places where your input can come in. All right, so we start to look at different sorts of teams. Different teams have different dynamics. We have the self-managed teams, so they might be operating as a unit. Okay, so they're the self-managed team. Okay, so once again, you're going to get a lot of people at about the same level, so trust becomes a big thing because, there is no process of just saying, because I said so. The self-managed teams tend to run themselves. They get to know each other fairly well. It tends to go fairly smoothly as long as there is those basic understandings and sort of, rules of how people need to operate. There's other things that we might have is virtual teams. Okay, now where a virtual team's a little bit different is that you might find that people are scattered over quite a long area. Unlike the self-managed team, they probably don't see each other very often. If you've got a virtual team, it might be a bunch of people brought together for a short term to carry out a certain activity. And then what will happen is they might split away. It might also be someone that's at a distance. I've had teams where I was in Sydney, but other team members are in Melbourne, in Adelaide, in Perth. They're scattered around the country. We haven't really ever met each other. We're put together to achieve a certain task, and then we go back on our way. Without that, face-to-face, it can be really hard to make sure that we've got this trust built up. But we still need to make sure we have some sort of consultation because we need to be able to deal with each other and everyone needs to know what's going on. We can also have things like cross-functional teams where we're doing different activities. and starting to build something else, okay? So that can be, virtual. It can be any, there's a whole, way that might work. Virtual or self-managed, face-to-face, whatever it happens to be, but they're going to be involved in a whole range of different tasks. So we need to think if they're engaged in various different tasks, we just need to once again make sure there's consultation so that people know what's going on, even if some of those people on these teams won't be involved in that particular activity, okay, because they're doing multiple things there and keeping that running. All right, so what we really need to do is to identify, the sort of subject matter experts that are going to be relevant to our organisation to work out who are the managers and supervisors that are going to be making decisions for us. We need to understand, well, what stakeholders do we need to consult with? What are we about to do that we need to talk to people about? We need to think about, well, how are we going to engage with those people in a consultation process? Is it going to be electronic? Is it going to be face-to-face? Remembering that a lot of communication is non-verbal, okay? That body language says a lot at times. Emails can be misconstrued, and we've all seen it, where someone puts something, particularly on social media, and someone takes it a certain way, and that was certainly not the way it was intended. So we need to think about what we're going to get back, and we need to balance how quickly we can get information, how much it's going to cost from a time and resource intensiveness. We need to think about the structure of the team. How's the team put together? What are the dynamics? We need to think about, well, how we're going to make sure there's trust there, so people, we want people to tell us the truth, and that's only going to happen if there's trust. And we need to think about, well, what are we going to do with that information, and how are we going to make sure that everyone felt that their opinions were heard, that they felt that their opinions were validated and not invalidated or dismissed, and to make sure that our final plans have bore that in mind, because we want to take everyone on the journey. Now, the last thing about consultation is a trap for some managers is don't confuse consultation with seeking permission. You're not seeking permission. What you're doing is checking to make sure that your idea is valid and workable. Okay, sometimes people confuse consultation with, I need to get the permission of all these people. It's not about that. It's about making sure that everyone's informed, making sure you've got the right answers, and being able to go forward. If I asked my daughter if she wanted to eat all the vegetables every night and consulted with her on that, she would say no. And if I took that as that's permission, she'd be eating fish fingers the whole time, which is probably not healthy. As the manager in a household, I need to get her to do the things I need to do, and sometimes that means I can consult with about what vegetables they might be, but ultimately that is where we're going to go. All right, thank you very much. That's consultation.